As you know, the president now has sitting members of this government. You have the Attorney General traveling the world now, meeting with U.S. intelligence partners, trying to find out, in his view, whether they participated in some sort of Obama administration-led effort to undermine President Trump in the last election here. Are you concerned that Barr's or Durham's investigation will find wrongdoing and seek to punish former intelligence officials?
Well, I don't know. I don't think there was any wrongdoing. I think at the time all of us were trying to navigate a very, very difficult, politically fraught, highly charged situation. I know for my part, my main concern was the Russians and the threat posed by the Russians to our very political fabric. And the message I'm getting from all this is apparently what we were supposed to have done was to ignore the Russian interference, ignore the Russian meddling and the threat that it poses to us. And oh, by the way, blown off what the then Commander-in-Chief, President Obama, told us to do, which was to assemble all the reporting that we had available to us and put it in one report that the President could pass on to the Congress and to the next administration. And while we're at it, declassify as much as we possibly could to make it public. And that's what we did.
So, Jeff, what was the Obama administration's reaction to the Russian interference when it was first made aware of it?
Well, of course, there was great concern from what we're hearing, but this was something that the administration was really struggling to respond to, trying to figure out the right approach to this.
President Obama was told in 2016, just before the election in September, that Russia may try and interfere with the election. He did nothing. And the reason he did nothing is he thought Hillary was going to win.
It's kind of disconcerting now to be investigated for, having done our duty and done what we were told to do by the president.
As the election campaign was in full swing, the National Security Advisor, Susan Rice, told the team to stand down, stop working on options to counter the Russian attack.
But as far as your cyber response, you were told to stand down. Is that correct?
We were, those actions were put on the back burner, yes.
Was to talk to him directly and tell him to cut it out, and there were going to be some serious consequences if he didn't.
Attorney General Bill Barr, true to his word, has just appointed a U.S. attorney to determine if surveillance of the Trump team was unlawful. That Connecticut's U.S. Attorney John Durham will investigate the origins of the Russia investigation.
John Durham was such a brilliant choice by Bill Barr. It was so timely. We have perhaps the most respected prosecutor in the United States. He's totally above politics. You can't talk about he's an angry Republican. He was confirmed by literally every member of the Senate who voted. And why? Because of his record. So we have a really honest cop on the beat now.
But you wouldn't go with a U.S. attorney like Durham, someone of his stature, unless the Attorney General thinks actually something criminal might have happened, that someone might have violated the law, that there might have been malfeasance, that people at the FBI or the Justice Department were acting out of partisan motives, not just out of incompetence or stupidity, or they were duped by the Russians or Steele or the English or by the Clinton campaign. So if you were a Democrat, I think you would be really worried to see the appointment of a career prosecutor like this.
Why not just have every investigative body in this country looking into whether this was politically motivated, even though we already know it wasn't?
We already know it wasn't.
You saw a little bit of James Comey's wife, Patrice, last night. She was introduced to the country for the first time, a passionate Hillary Clinton supporter.
Hundreds of thousands of demonstrators take to the streets, among them the wife and daughters of FBI Director James Comey.
Take us inside your house at that point. You've written about this. Your wife, Patrice, Hillary Clinton supporter.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't take a poll among all the kids, but I'm pretty sure that at least my 4 daughters, probably all 5 of my kids, wanted Hillary Clinton to be the first woman president.
Even though we already know it wasn't.
I wanted a woman president really badly, and I supported Hillary Clinton. A lot of my friends worked for her, and I was devastated when she lost.
AG Bill Barr talking with government officials in Ukraine, Italy, Australia, and the United Kingdom, trying to find out how the whole Russia hoax started.
Because all Republicans know how to do is sit there and bitch and moan because they want Democrats thrown in jail for crimes that were never committed.
We know the president has long championed the narrative that the investigation into his campaign's interactions with Russia was illegitimate from the jump.
The left is not used to being investigated.
Precisely.
They are used to always being on offense.
Precisely.
Donald Trump is the first Republican of my lifetime, and I'm not a kid, who has gone on offense against the left.
What, do you understand a motive?
I don't, and I'm supposedly going to be interviewed by Mr. Durham.
You understand that John Brennan was the puppet master of the entire scheme to violate the civil liberties of Donald Trump and his team? John Brennan was that guy. John Brennan, Tucker, tweeting today about his principles. I thought it was a joke. I had to check for the blue check mark. John Brennan has no principles. This is a disgraceful human being who nearly destroyed the reputation of the intelligence community. Tucker, on August 25th of 2016, John Brennan himself, this is a fact, it's public record, went and briefed Harry Reid up on the Hill about elements in the dossier that then made it into a letter from Harry Reid to the FBI that was used as a predicate to spy on the Trump team. And we're supposed to trust this guy? This guy should get off Twitter and hire a lawyer.
Barr will be able to override other agencies' independent classification determinations. And the goal of all this here seems pretty clear. It's basically to give Sean Hannity material for his television show. Wow. But another example of how the selective release of information can work is in none other than Bill Barr's own piecemeal release of the Mueller report. For example, Barr quoted part 1 of a sentence making it seem that Mueller found Trump's campaign had nothing to do with Russia. Weeks later, when we saw the complete sentence, it became clear this couldn't have been further from the truth.
It became clear this couldn't have been further from the truth.
Second, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired with the Russian government in its election interference activities.
For example, Barr quoted part 1 of a sentence making it seem that Mueller found Trump's campaign had nothing to do with Russia.
The investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired with the Russian government in its election interference activities.
Weeks later, when we saw the complete sentence, it became clear this couldn't have been further from the truth. Joining me now, a man with a deep understanding about the importance of classification, John Brennan.
And it's unclear to me what Mr. Barr actually is going to do. Is he investigating a crime? Well, what's the predication of that crime? Or is he just going to be looking for information? I think, as you rightly pointed out at the top, that Mr. Trump can just give to some of his defenders on the right.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
You nailed it right down the middle, because for the first time you have a Republican in the White House who goes on offense and plays by the Democrats' rules and swings for the fences every time he wakes up in the morning, and they can't take it. They can't handle it, and I believe a lot of the impeachment process right now is based upon that fact.
Sources also say another investigation into the Russia probe, this one headed up by veteran prosecutor John Durham, has been expanded based on what Durham is finding. He has added staff and agents and has widened the timeline of the investigation past Election Day and into the spring of 2017, when Robert Mueller was appointed special counsel. No word on when Durham's investigation will be completed.
Catherine, you've been following the Russia probe, the investigation really from the beginning. What are your thoughts on these developments we brought at the beginning of the show on the scope of the Durham investigation expanding?
Brett, the expansion of the Durham investigation, this broader time frame from the spring of 2016 until Mueller's appointment in May of 2017, the fact that he's asking for additional resources, additional agents, the fact that it's now a global investigation. He's been to Italy, Britain. He's also working with the Australians. All of this based on my experience from the very beginning is that Durham has found evidence that likely points to criminal wrongdoing. And based on my 2 decades covering the Justice Department, he is not the type of prosecutor to ask for extra help if there is simply no there, Brett.